Hey, this is Greg West. I wanted to speak to you all at the end of the semester, especially the class of 2020, the end of your undergraduate careers, and send you out with some words of encouragement. I wanted to talk to you about greatness, the measure of greatness. We all know we're living in a time where the world is in crisis. We're in the middle of this pandemic. There's death and suffering all around. We have stories of racism and murder that reverberate in our culture. There's injustices all around. We have sky-high unemployment, and it seems like the disparity between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, keeps growing and growing. And yet, we know there's stories of good out there, great people doing amazing things, amazing people doing great things. But those stories aren't told enough. And I don't think anybody would argue that we need more of those stories of greatness happening in our world today. So I want to encourage you from an ancient story. It comes from the 20th chapter of Matthew's Gospel. Here's the background to the story. Jesus has been teaching and preaching and healing and serving. And one of the disciples, two of the disciples' the mother of James and John, comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, you've been talking about this kingdom, and when you come into your kingdom, can my sons sit at your left and your right? They have an interesting conversation, and it doesn't go so great for the mother. She doesn't understand the nature of his kingdom. And then we pick up with these words. When the 10, the other disciples, heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So what's the measure of greatness? How do we define it? There's a good one about a boy who was walking home from the park, and he had his baseball bat and his baseball in his hand, and he stopped and he declared, I'm the greatest baseball player that's ever lived. And he threw that ball up in the air, and he took a swing and missed, and it fell to the ground. And so he picked up the ball and said it again, I am the greatest baseball player that has ever lived. And he threw it up in the air and swung again, missed. Picked it up, threw it up again while saying, I'm the greatest baseball player that's ever lived. And he swung as hard as he could, and he missed. And then he just smiled and said, what a pitcher. Maybe we've been defining greatness with the wrong yardstick, measuring it incorrectly. What's the measure of greatness? I remember right when I graduated from college, I went off with a missionary group called Wesleyan, and I was studying there and growing there, and my roommate was a guy named Chad, much younger than me. And I brought my guitar because I wanted so bad to become a good guitar player, and Chad was a violinist and very good. I was working so hard to become a good guitar player, and then Chad asked if he could play my guitar. I said, sure. He had never played one. And before long, Chad was cruising on that guitar. He was a natural. It just came to him so easily. And I had been working for months and months, and I couldn't get anywhere. And Chad was just doing amazing. And then they asked him to lead worship for the missionary school. Well, I couldn't worship because I was so full of jealousy. And God taught me some lessons there. What's the measure of greatness? Was it great that I become a great guitarist? I'm there at this missionary school learning about the glory of God. That's the greatest, to honor our Maker. And so God humbled me and led me to pray that Chad would become an even greater guitar player and worship leader. And when I found that freedom to lift him up and I redefined greatness, it's great if God gets worshiped. It's great if God gets the glory. It doesn't matter if I never become a guitar player. It's all right. And so I had measured it wrong and therefore wasn't experiencing life well. Didn't go well for me. And so much of greatness is putting yourself aside and putting others first. Right now, we're seeing the nurses and the doctors around the world putting others first, at risk to their very lives. And we're all deeply moved and filled with gratitude for them. That's the measure of greatness, putting others first. The grocery store workers that are in day after day with the public at risk. So many others that are on the front lines of all this, serving selflessly. That's greatness. In your career, as you launch out class of 2020, is it really about climbing ladders, about titles and status and power? Or can you see the value of dedicating your life to people and causes that you believe in, not worrying about the titles and the status and the prestige? This is where the rabbi, teacher, Jesus says, if you want to become great, you have to become a servant. This is in great contrast to what the world teaches us. But I think you'll find a fulfillment there in serving others that you won't find ever in the pursuit of power and titles and prestige and status. Even greatness in relationships, if you think about it, we all want to do well with friends, with family, romantic relationships. And the truth is, if we serve our friends, our loved ones, things go better. But if we try to exercise our dominance over them, it doesn't go well. Serve people. You'll find meaning there. That's the path to greatness. And so, whether it's your career, your relationships, or even your last semester of college, so often you don't get to choose the moments that will define your greatness or your failure. We get curveballs, we get surprises, we get bad news. So how do we respond? Do we serve, or do we seek more for us? Self, self, self. There's a story about some tourists in Italy visiting an old ancient town, and one of them asks one of the people that lives in the village, were any great men or women born in this village? And the local says, no, only babies. Greatness comes over days and months and years of hard work and integrity and serving. That's when it's really played out. One of my great heroes of the faith and in life is Booker T. Washington. He has this definition of success, which is another way of saying greatness. He says, success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life, but as by the obstacles that one has overcome while trying to succeed. In his autobiography, Up From Slavery, he details how he walked from the coal mines of West Virginia to Hampton, Virginia, so he could attend the Hampton Institute, now Hampton University. He wasn't able to pass the admittance tests, and so he became a janitor at the Hampton Institute until he could pass the exam and get in as a student. You all may know his story. He went on to found the Tuskegee Institute, opening opportunities for education for thousands upon thousands of African Americans in Alabama that didn't have that opportunity before. So I tell you, it's not about the money you make, but it's about how you use your money to help others. It's not about the titles that you have, but it's about how you use your position and your influence to serve others. It's not so much about you publishing a book or starting some project or program, but that whatever you do, your work lifts people up, brings life and freedom, and it reconciles them. It brings peace and truth. And remember, all your potential greatness can be put in jeopardy. It may all come crashing down if you yield to selfish choices and bad decisions. And so Jesus says, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. So we all need examples. We need teachers. We really need a life manager, and Jesus is that to so many of us. He didn't just teach to serve, but he served. He didn't just tell people to love, but he loved actively. And this one has not only served, but he served by laying down his life for us, dying, and 3 days later rising from the dead. He defines greatness because he's the source of all of it. So I encourage you, Virginia Wesleyan, class of 2020, aim for greatness. Aim for greatness. I want to send you out with a Franciscan benediction that might surprise you. It's a little bit different. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and turn their pain to joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all our children and to the poor. So, to all the Marlins out there, but especially the class of 2020, a toast to you. Oh wait, not that kind of toast. Here it is. A toast to you. Wait, that was water. Oh, he did it again. Thank you, Lord. Aim for greatness.